Okay. We're holding on Tzadik Aleph on 91a by the words Rakak v'Gia by a Reik. It's towards the bottom of 91a. Heber Chulam. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In the schus of our learning, we should have the Beis Mikdash. You see it on Tzadik Aleph, 91. Okay. So we're learning in the memory of Sahaba Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin, and also Refuah Shlema for my father. Sorry. Okay. It says like this: Rakak v'Gia by a Reik. Someone spat at someone else in this 91, and the spat hit him. V'Hever Chulu, or he removed his clothing from him, so he got embarrassed him. So he has to pay how much? 91a, towards the bottom. He has to pay 400 zuz. Amarav Papa, this is only if the spit hit him. But if it hit his clothing, then it's not. So then it's not the same thing. The Gemara says, why is it not the same thing? The embarrassment should be the same. And have a kibayish bidvarim. If someone embarrasses someone with words, so it doesn't actually affect his body. But if he insults him, that could be embarrassing. We actually learned from this that if someone embarrasses someone with words, he doesn't actually have to pay. It's only embarrasses with action. I didn't realize this. The whole time we're learning this Gemara, we're not talking about insulting. He calls him a this and that, and that he doesn't have to pay. Do you agree, Rabbi Naftali?
Question.
Yeah.
What's the basic amount in a ksuva? Is it the 200 zuzim?
Yeah, for a psula.
Yeah, so 200 zuzim is supposed to be equivalent to basically a working man's wage.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about double that for someone being insulted or spit
Right.
on? Sounds like excessive.
Yeah. Yeah. So very surprising.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Could be Lashon Hara, but we're saying that he doesn't have to pay. Oh, for Lashon Hara? Oh, maybe there is. Oh, that's what it. Hill is suggesting that maybe there's other penalties for that. For the words. Someone insults someone with words. Okay. It's not a monetary thing, something coming from God. Yeah, everything is according to this is Tanna Kamma says that it makes a difference what a person's place is in society, how honorable he is. If he's more honored, then he gets more insulted if they do this to him. He gets more embarrassed. So the Gemara has a question. Tanna Kamma when it says akolafi kvayde, you just told me that it's 400 zuz for this and 200 zuz for that, and so when they say now that it depends on the person's status, so are they being more strict that sometimes it's going to be more than 400, or are they saying that sometimes it's going to be less? I would have suggested that it's both, but the Gemara doesn't think that. The Gemara thinks that it's one or the other. The Gemara says l'kula kamar. It's he's being more lenient. Talking about it could be that there is a poor person, his status is much lower, he doesn't get the 400. Maybe maybe he's talking about that we're being more strict. The kasha, the boiler that a wealthy person, you have to give him even more than 400. Well, Tashima, come listen. Me the Kamma Rabbi Kiva Filonim should be Strolis, Reynes, Kilim, and Echem, Shad, Mechsim, Shemiav, Mitzvah Yaakov. Rabbi Kiva argues with the Tanakama. Kiva says that you have to view even the poorest Jew as someone that used to be wealthy, because he's the son of Avram and Yaakov. Okay, so now what's Rabbi Kiva saying? Kiva saying that you can't give someone less money by claiming that he's of a lower status, because really every Jewish person is really a higher status. That means we have to go back to the 400s. What was the Tanakama saying? Tanakama meant that no, you can give someone less if he's poor, which means the Tanakama is being lenient. When they said that it depends on the person's status, they're being lenient, and Rabbi Kiva is saying, no, you can't be lenient.
Could it be that he was referring to like
Who? Yeah, but then Rabbi Kiva wouldn't have been arguing with him.
Sometimes they say different things, and it's not really an argument, because sometimes Rabbi Papa comes and says, "Oh no, this person means this, the other rabbi means that."
If a Jewish ox damages a non-Jewish owned ox, Jewish pater or chai?
Depends if he's an
Pater?
option.
It's pater. Pater. So now we're gonna make him chayav if he. Hillel was suggesting that maybe if you insult a non-Jew, maybe the halacha, the Tanakama was saying that the halacha would be depending on his status, and he wasn't arguing with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was saying that the Jew, there's no concept of status because every Jew is. And the only thing is probably, I think that probably if he insults a non-Jew, he's probably going to be exempt. That's what I think, but I don't know.
What was that story once you told us, or somebody, about the woman who was told to spit in the rabbi's eye? And does that go with this or go against this? I can't remember the story.
Dr. Stein is
Is
asking
that the story with Reb Meir?
Mr. Mayor.
I think so, no?
Yeah.
It was a Tana, one of them.
It was Reb Meir, and I can't remember if it was it a Gemara Kedushin or was it?
But we learned it, but I don't remember it. When he's talking about someone spitting in the covered eye, what was the result there? Is that
he asked for it? He said, "I have a pain in my eye. Can anyone know how to spit and to take away the pain?"
But someone had told her to do that.
Her husband, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't insulted because of it, because he was asking for it.
But he knew that it wasn't her intention, that it was her husband.
Yeah, but she didn't know that he knew. Right?
So even though he knew, who knew?
The mayor said it because of so that she should be able to spit in his eye.
So that she shouldn't be embarrassed not following God's because Malcha was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think in 2 pages, taking that and someone tells you to do something.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up.
Yes.
Okay, we see that Tanakama was actually being lenient. We have a story of someone that uncovered the woman's hair, and the person said, "Give me some time," and then he caused her to uncover her own hair because he spilt the oil, and she took it, she put it in her hair. So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks on that story, do we give time for a person before he pays up? Rabbi Chanina says, some say it's Rabbi Yochanan. If a person damages, we don't give him time, we make him pay right away. And over here he said, "Give me some time." So Kili Avin Zman, the Gemara answers, when don't we give the time? That's only a type of damage where the person is actually damaged and he loses money. But when it comes to just the penalty, it's not a restitution, it's a penalty that we're adding on a person. For that we can give extra time. That we can give time. This is for embarrassment. If we see her, I'm sorry. This is the story where he saw her standing at the entrance to the courtyard, and that's when she takes the oil and she puts it on her head. And the fellow tells her to Rabbi Akiva he says, to this woman, you want me to pay 400 zuz? So it says like this. But Tanya, but it started in the Bryce Amalei Rebbe Kiva Tzalalta b'mayim adirim. You sunk in the deep waters. Ve'alisa cheres biyadcha, and you came up with clay. You didn't really come up with anything,
Well,
right?
I think we're really arguing because then here in the notes it says that Rabbi Akiva would have fined the guy
Right.
that buried the woman more than 400 zuz.
Right. If it would have been the opposite, when we said that the reason why Rabbi Kiva said 400 was because he was arguing with the Tanna Kamma that said less than 400. If it would have been the opposite, if the Tanna Kamma would have said it could be more than 400, then if the Tanna Kamma would have said a kol fi kvaydai, then Rabbi Akiva would be saying, why did Rabbi Akiva say only 400? It could have been more than 400, right?
It's 35.
Yeah.
Like, there shows that he was like pro, like,
Right. But because he only made it to 400, that means that Tanna Kamma was saying less than 400. That's the idea. The Gemara question: Tanna Kamma is saying less than 400 or more than 400? So we prove it that the Tanna Kamma says less than 400 because Rabbi Kiva only said 400. He was arguing with the Tanna Kamma. Otherwise, it would have been higher than 400. Okay. So we have a contradiction here because in our Mishnah it says that a person in the chulu, in that etc. That doesn't get quoted over here. It just says chulu. It says that even though a person is not allowed to damage himself, even though he shouldn't damage himself, but if other people damage him, he's going to be chayav. Now, the words were, even though a person is not allowed to damage himself. Comes along this brisa that has the same story of Rabbi Kiva, and it says, you came up with clay, because because a person is allowed to damage himself. So 1 second. You told me before a person in the Mishnah, you said a person is not allowed to damage himself. Over here you tell me a person is allowed to damage himself. The conclusion of both of them is the same. But whether he is or he's not, the conclusion is that no one else is allowed to damage him. But the first part of it is a contradiction. The Mishnah says that he's not allowed to, and over here it says he is allowed. Person's not allowed to damage himself, but he's allowed to embarrass himself. 1 second. The Mishnah wasn't talking about damage. The Mishnah was the same story. It's talking about embarrassment. And he said he's not allowed to damage himself, which means he's not allowed to embarrass himself. In other words, the woman, it's funny. We're not concerned about that she took off her sheitel. We're concerned about that the embarrassment. Was she allowed to cause embarrassment to herself? So, she's exempt. I don't know what the term exempt is. That's Tosfos asked that. Anyway, Hachi Karmalei. The Gemara says this is what it means to say. It says like this. What it meant was that a person is allowed to embarrass himself. He's allowed to do something that's embarrassing. He's not allowed to damage himself. And nevertheless, even though he's not allowed to, or he is allowed to, but if whatever the case is, if other people do it, he's going to be, if he does it himself, he would be exempt, but if other people do it, he's going to, they're going to be chayav.
Does it have to be a true weight? Are we still talking about bolshus or wounding?
Both. Now we're talking about both. Boishas, he's allowed to. Wounding, he's not allowed to. And nevertheless, there's no consequence. But if someone else does it, there is a consequence.
Does it mamish have to be a wound like we discussed previously where there's
That we're
real
gonna see
damage?
shortly.
Or can it just
That's
be,
what we're gonna see shortly. Pain and other stuff.
well, because I'm thinking of the malchus that we do in Chabad.
Oh,
So you're asking somebody else to go hit you 39 times.
uh-huh,
So, and yet,
uh-huh.
I mean, that's all.
Little taps.
It's a little tax, but it could be, for a sensitive person. It could always turn.
There's a
into-
discussion here about the Malkus on Erev Yom Kippur, if you're allowed to ask someone to hit you. That's what they're discussing.
No, I mean. we
So
know
Hillel
you
says
can,
it's
I'm
just little taps. It doesn't hurt. And Dr. Stein says, well, maybe it could hurt if someone has some sort of pain somewhere, and that could hurt. Okay.
Just for the record, I let someone do malchus on me this past Yom Kippur.
If you're going to
I
be
think
that
the first
that
time,
strict, then you're going to have a shiloh. You're allowed to say Shalom Aleichem. Sometimes the guy squeezes your
The question is if you got one Malkus for all the years you never got.
hand.
But you can't say Shalom Aleichem on Shabbos to somebody before you die. I think that's tough from other
Right.
rubs.
Right. Okay. So after davening,
Yeah,
are you allowed to say Shalom Aleichem?
You
The guy?
better, otherwise you won't do it. Forget it.
Okay.
I'm disinviting you from my house.
And you put your hand in your pocket.
The Gemara asks, a person's not allowed to cause himself damage. But Tanya, we have a brisa. Maybe if someone takes an oath that he's going to cause damage to himself, and he doesn't do the damage, so maybe we should say that he's exempt because he wasn't allowed to do the damage anyway. He wasn't even allowed to take that oath. So the pasuk says no. The pasuk says So we're coming to say that if a person says, I'm going to damage myself, and he doesn't, since he was allowed to do the damage, so now he's chayav because he didn't keep his oath. If it would have been something he wasn't allowed to do anyway, he would have been exempt from the oath. But now it's obviously he is allowed to do. So why do you tell me that you're not allowed to damage? You see, you're allowed to. It's not talking about real damage. We're talking about, he says he's going to fast. He's going to fast. Okay, now the Gemara does a comparison here because Pasuk's talking about if he takes an oath for himself or he takes an oath for others. The that obviously you're talking about that if he takes an oath that he's going to do to someone else means that he's going to put someone else in a fast. Can he put someone else in a fast? The Gemara says the Mahadakvu Ba'adruna, he locks him in a box, he locks him in a adruna, probably a room of some sort. But Tanya, 1 second, the Gemara says that's not what we learned in the Brisa. The Brisa says what would it mean causing pain or causing evil to someone else? He says I'm going to hit him and I'm going to open up his skull. It's not talking about putting him in a fast. It means obviously we're talking about that a person is allowed to cause himself pain. And that's why if he says and if he doesn't fulfill it, then he violated his vow, which obviously meant that was something that he was allowed to do. It must be that there's a machlaikas. Is a person allowed to cause himself pain or not?
It wouldn't be considered kidnapping or fucking someone in the room.
For a few hours. Hill is asking if it's considered kidnapping if he locks someone in a room. But let's say he locks him in his own house.
In their own.
In their room. You stand by the door. You put your foot by the door.
It doesn't matter the area. You're preventing him from his freedom, like walking out, like.
I know, but that not necessarily is that considered kidnapping under the 10 Commandments.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
They do like home robberies. They hold the people there. There's a charge for that.
It could be, but it wouldn't go under the kidnapping. I don't think. Kidnapping.
That's already a gun. Come under the robbery, he's come with a gun.
No, but just an example of them being robbed in their own house.
Right. Yalla. Tanoi. It must be a machlekes tanaim. Dikalaman damar eidan damar shayla chabal batzmi. One opinion holds that a person's not allowed to cause damage to himself. And another opinion says the person is allowed to cause damage to himself. Now, from our Mishnah, we would understand that a person is allowed to cause damage, or from the Mishnah by the Brisa about taking an oath, a person is allowed to cause damage. But the Gemara doesn't know the other one that says the person is not allowed to. The Gemara asks, "Man tana d'shamatle damar." What's our source that a person is not allowed to cause damage? The question that comes up over here is about girls getting earrings, their ears pierced. That would be causing damage to themselves, putting a hole through their skin. But I think it says that it's a damage that has that they have a use for it. I think that's the exception. No, you get the question. Why are they allowed to cause damage? They're putting a hole in it. If you're not allowed to do that, or the bris, the bris would be a mitzvah, but any elective surgery would be a problem. Anyway, so it says like this. Maybe it's just the following Tana that taught in a brisa. I will seek your own soul for your blood. That means if a person commits suicide, he's going to be held guilty. That from yourself I will seek your blood. So which means that a person is not allowed to cause himself damage. The Gemara says, well, maybe that's only by death. He can't kill himself. We didn't say it can't cause damage. Maybe it can cause damage. Today there's this thing where people scratch themselves. What is it called?
Self-injurious behavior.
Yeah. What's the reason why they do that? What is it for?
Psychological.
They want to show that they were suffering or something. Or...
Yeah. There's various things. But it's not healthy.
Right.
And it's worth what someone would consider.
So yeah, they say that it's like very high, the numbers today, people hurting themselves. Rather, okay, so it's not that, because that only says that a person not allowed to kill himself. What about hurting himself? So the Tanya was taught in a brayse makarn al meis v'lemidar chayamayri. Now, what is it? How does your translation go? A person's allowed to tear clothing for if in mourning, but not midar chayamayri. Well, now, what does that mean? But not midar chayamayri. And this does not entail a violation of the following the ways of the Amorites. Although there is much discussed of the exact nature of this prohibition, in general it refers to imitating the practice of idolaters. The Brisa states that rendering clothes for the dead is not forbidden under this law. Okay, so a person is allowed to tear his clothes. That's good. However, Rabbi Elazar says that I heard that if someone tears too much clothing, he violates the rules of baltashkas, that you're not let it destroy. It's really originally said by fruit trees, but it would apply to other things as well. But Kolshkin Gufa, for sure he can't harm his body. The Gemara says, shiny. How do you know? How are you making a kal v'chaimer? For sure the body, but maybe it's not so. Maybe clothing, you're not let it tear too much because clothing doesn't mend itself. Rabbi Yochanan called his clothing his honor, but however the body heals itself. So maybe he is allowed to harm himself. When Rav Chisda would walk through thorns, he would lift up his clothing and let it scratch his legs. He says, my legs that are going to get scratched, they'll heal. But the clothing that's going to get scratched is not going to heal. It must be, who's the one that says he's not allowed to harm himself? It was the Tanya was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Elazar HaKapra the Great said, this we're talking about a nazir here. It will atone for him that he sinned on the soul. What do you mean he sinned? He's just a nazir. He said that he wasn't going to drink wine. Don't stop drinking wine. It's a problem. But the matter is, is it not a kal v'chomer? If the person that only says he's not going to drink wine is considered a sinner, for sure he's not allowed to harm himself in other ways, which would mean to fast or to do other things.
Question about this stuff. Thought
Yeah.
the whole reason, one of the reasons for a ramp as opposed to steps was not to uncover erva at the bottom of the feet that will go on and into part of the sneeze concept. So why wasn't Rav Chisda here going against sneeze by lifting up his robe just to let his ankles get scratched? Not to
I thought that it was not the exposure of his skin.
So
the
one
ramp.
of the reasons.
Yeah, so that would be a kasha in that reason. But I thought the reason was just the separating of the legs when you have to take a step up was not appropriate by the Mizbeach. When you can walk just regularly, you don't have to separate your legs the same way. I didn't know that. I never heard that it was the exposure of the lower leg. That's the shot.
That I heard, yeah. And Ronnie yesterday at Shabbos morning for Bringen was mentioning that as well as he said.
Can you bring me a
He
chamesh?
said
You see the Rashi.
another
Chumash up
reason for the ramp
there.
is that
No, the last. Yeah.
is that with
Have a
steps
good week. Call to
Okay, safe
take you
trip.
off now. Thanks.
is that you can count the steps, so you know how far you've gone. You can count the steps. That, in other words, it's more. It's you know exactly where you stand, but with the ramp, it's like a continuous journey, and you don't know how far. I didn't really follow him totally on that. It's still an end to the
Yeah, Rashi says. So that you're going to separate your legs. No, because the steps require you to take wide steps. Although this is not actual exposure of nakedness, because they were wearing pants, but nevertheless, taking wide steps is close to exposing nakedness.
Oh, that was the Shaila on that statement.
And if you
But he
take wide
was
steps, you're
wearing
treating
pants.
yourselves in a humiliating manner.
All right.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Maybe there was a. Are you sure there's another shot that it's exposure? I never heard that.
No,
shot.
because the question on the exposure was by if they're wearing pants. So and we're 3 pages behind. So again, my question, I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we're holding now. We found the author of the one that says that the person's not allowed to cause harm to himself. It's the one that says that a person is a sinner if he becomes a nazir. Someone cuts someone now. If he cuts his own saplings, he's going to be exempt. But if he cuts someone else's, he's going to be. But if someone else cuts his, he's going to be chayiv. He could do it to himself, but others can't do it to him. Hani Rabba Bar Chana Kamei de Rav. Rabba Chana taught in front of Rav. If someone tells his friend, he says, "You killed my ox. You cut down my saplings." The person tells him back, "Atamartli lahargai. Atamartli because you told me to do it. Why are you complaining? Now you want me to pay? You were the one that instructed me to do it." So he says he's pater. That was a good excuse. Amalei, Rav says to Rabba Bar Chana, who's his first cousin once removed, says, says if you're going to accept an excuse like that, everyone's going to be able to get out of every thing. How are you going to be able to prove that the person didn't say it? Whenever someone does something, some damage, the person's just going to claim, you told me. You told me to. You asked me to. And that's not, we're not going to be able to ever extract money by it. Someone can always get out of it. Amalei Ismaya. So would you like me to erase this brisa that I was taught? Amalei Loi. You don't have to erase it, but the targum masnichach, you have to translate it differently. We're actually talking about like switches the whole thing around entirely. Talking about an ox that was supposed to be killed because it had killed a man, and it's a shara niskal. Ox is supposed to be killed. And talking about a tree that was supposed to be cut down. Why is the tree supposed to be cut down? Because it was an asherah, it was an idolatrous tree. Or maybe it was in a situation where it was dangerous, looked like it was falling. Ihachi, Micah Turnley, the Gemara asked the obvious question. So why is he complaining that the person did it if you were supposed to do it? Because he's complaining like this. I was supposed to be doing the mitzvah. The Tanya, it says in the Brisa, the sheikhet is the one that does the covering of the blood by a bird or by a wild animal. We have a story of a person that shechted, and someone else ran along and did the mitzvah. And the sheikhet complained. He said, "It's my mitzvah. I wanted to do the mitzvah." So Rabbi Gamliel made the person pay 10 gold coins. So here, he said, "You killed my ox." He wasn't complaining that you weren't supposed to kill it. He was saying that you took the mitzvah from me. And the person said, "You told me to do it." So then, if he's complaining about doing the mitzvah, then the person can say, "But you told me, you gave me permission to do the mitzvah." Great. Amar Rav. Rav says, Dikla the toin kaba asal l'miktzatza. A tree that gives you a kav, which is approximately 24, I think it's 24 eggs, so the size of 24 eggs, like 2 dozen eggs, of dates. Gives you like 24 dates off that tree, which is not a lot, but it's still asal miktzah. You can't cut the tree down because it's still producing fruit. Meisvei, where's this kasha? Kamiyeh bezayas v'leyikatsu. How much is an olive tree giving fruit, and then you can't cut it down because it's giving fruit? Raiva, a quarter of a kav of olives, you can't cut it down. And by a date, we said that it was a whole kav. Versus shani seisim dechashibi, olives are more expensive, more precious. So therefore, even less than even a quarter of the amount by the dates. Very interesting. Amar Rav Chanina Laishachiv Shivchas Bri. I guess that was his name. My son Shivchas, is that his name? My son Shivchas didn't pass away. Because I cut down a tree too early. What type of name is that? Did they explain anything about that?
It says that follows Rash Brown.
That what? What's the my son Shivchas Primachani 30. Yeah. Okay. Oh, other renders it as a 2-word proper name. A rendition of Shivchas Pri, my son Shivchas. Others render a 2-word proper name. Shivchas Pri is his name. You see that? That's interesting. Shivchas Pri was his name.
Who cut down the fig tree? The person that
No,
died?
Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina cut it down, and his son died because of that. Yeah. Yeah, some Sefer, all the some Sefer and all the Hungarian people are very careful about cutting down trees, even though it's very clear from this that a tree that's not producing fruit or there's more value to the wood, as we're going to see, than the tree, you're allowed to cut it down. But the some Sefer learns is that it doesn't mean that this curse of cutting down a tree, what could happen to someone's family, doesn't apply. Even though you have a heter, you still don't do it. That's others learn that no, if someone does it in a forbidden way, that's when it has to. That's when it has. But he had a very strict view on this. People that they're trying to build a house, they'll and there's a tree in the way, they'll build a whole house around it, like hundreds of thousands of dollars more. They'll leave the tree not to touch it because of the concern that some Sefer had. Yeah, over here it's clear though that at least according to Rashi says a tree that's leaning over the public property is a mitzvah to cut it down. Okay. Anyway, if it's what's it called? If it's like it looks like a dangerous, Yeah, I have this coconut tree that's leaning over the
Everybody has a leaning coconut tree.
So I could cut it down, but Minadin, I can cut it down. There's no shaila. It's a dangerous thing. But I pay for the guy to go and trim it when as soon as they start to to get big. So so Stama Chumra, I think.
See the one in front of the rabbi's house?
No. But
He has two giant coconut trees. The one on the right side, which is the east side, after the hurricanes, it was knocked at a 45-degree angle, and it's like I was just waiting for fall down. So then finally right it up. So when you look at it, comes out of the ground, it goes 45 degrees, and then now it's straight up. So it's still like if you can't come in with a high van or something, you'd hit the tree.
I watched the tree fall. It was a coconut. I had a coconut tree on my property, and it was like growing like a slant, and it fell.
Eventually,
yeah.
They have very shallow roots.
Yeah, and then it was so light to move. I was surprised at how light it was. Okay, it wasn't an oak tree. No. Amar Ravina, Vima Yamula Bedamim Mutter. Ravina says, but if the wood is more than the fruits, then you're allowed to cut it for the wood, right? Tani Namiachi was taught in a Bryce Iraqi. It's a Sheteda. It says when laying siege against another place, you're not supposed to cut down the fruit trees, but you are allowed to if it's necessary. Raki, it's a Sheteda, only a tree that you know that's not a fruit tree. It says, 1 second, Ze Eitz Michael. We're talking about it. Yes, it is a fruit tree. Then the pasuk goes on. It says that it's not a fruit tree. Okay, that's not the one. That's not the fruit tree. Gemara says 1 second. If you, in the end, you're going to tell me that you can really cut down a fruit tree as well. So why do you tell me that you have to know that it's not a fruit tree? That in this situation, first you cut down the non-fruit tree. Maybe you can't cut down the fruit tree even if the wood is more expensive than the fruits. Tamalei marak says rak. It's an exception, which means that then I don't have to cut down the ilan srak. Ilan srak means the non-fruit tree. First, I am allowed to cut down the fruit tree. Shmuel Isilei Arisi Tamri. Shmuel, his aris, his sharecropper, brought him some dates. Achal tambu tamid chamra. They tasted like wine. This would sell in like packaged date, wine tasting dates. Amalei, my highest. So what's going on? Amalei, Beini Gufni Kaimi, they're growing amongst the vines. Amalei Machach Shibachamra.
Before
yeah, it's before genetically modified. So obviously it's weakening the vines. If that's the case, bring me from the hearts of palm, which means you have to cut the tree down to get the hearts of palm. Which means Shmuel was ready to cut down the tree because it was ruining his other trees, his vines. The dates was ruining the vines. He cut down the dates, cut down the palm tree. Rav Chisda chasa tali begufni. Rav Chisda saw a tali. How do they translate tali? A palm tree, right? A sapling. So, have your pencil here? Amalei Larise, he tells the sharecropper, Akrinu Gufni. Akrinu, he says Akrinu, uprooted. Gufni, Kani Dikli like Kani Gufni. Thank you. So he says because the vine is more expensive than the dates, so therefore you have to uproot the dates. Okay. Now we have a new Mishnah. Even though he has to pay whatever he has to pay, but the person is not forgiven until he asks forgiveness from the person that he just embarrassed. It says, now you'll return the wife of the man, and he will pray for you, which means that you have to ask for forgiveness. I mean, that's talking about Abimelech and Avram when he took Sarai, right, at that point. I mean, how do you know if the person doesn't forgive that he's considered cruel? Avram davened for him, even after everything he did, but he still davened for him, and Hashem healed him. Someone says, make me blind, cut off my hand, break my foot, he's chayiv. The person is going to be, even though he does it, he's going to be chayiv. But he says, almanas lifter. Let's say the person adds in, he says, on condition that you're going to be exempt, he's still chayiv. That the guy that does is going to be exempt. Chayiv, he's still chayiv. Koresk sushi shabbos kadi chayiv. But let's say he said, now we're going to see a contrast there. If he says, tear my clothes, break my jug, he's going to be chayiv. I'm an lifter. But if he says, on condition that they're going to be exempt, and it's going to be pater. So when it comes to himself, when it comes to the body, he's going to be chayiv, even if he says I'm an lifter. When it comes to his clothing, if he says I'm an lifter, on condition to be exempt, it's going to be pater. Also, can lish plain alman lifter. Do it to so and so, and you'll be exempt. He's chayiv beim beguf beim minay. Yeah, we'll have to see in the Gemara exactly why that's even chiddush. Okay, Tanur Rabbanan. All of these that we said that you have to pay all of those amounts of money, that's the meibashtai. That's just for the pain. That's just for the embarrassment. But the pain, Rashi says, the pain that comes from the embarrassment, knows the moment of embarrassment, that was the 400. But when he's reminded of it and all of that, there's still pain there of that embarrassment. For that, he has to ask for forgiveness. Even if he's going to bring all the rams of Nevayos, I guess it means like a place where they had these good rams, it's not going to atone for him. I guess it means even if he brings sacrifices. The Gemara says, return the wife of the man because he's a prophet and he will pray for you. You have to return him only because he's a prophet, the wife of the prophet, but a wife of someone else, he doesn't have to return. You have to return the wife, never, whatever the case is. But this that you said,
what is he returning the wife?
Abimelech took Sarai.
The Abimelech story.
Yeah. He said, but you're going to kill someone that's innocent. Abimelech is asking God. He told me that it's his sister. And she also said that it's my brother. So regarding that, Navihu ukvar limed achsenai shabal leir aliski achilu shtir shalom esay aliski ishte shalom aliski achilu shalom esay oy aliski ishte shalom esay ishtechei acheischei. What do you ask when someone comes to town? Do you ask him if he needs something to eat, or do you ask him about his wife? Is this your wife or is this your sister? So this is teaching Abimelech the reason why he was guilty was because he was supposed to know how to behave and he didn't know. He asked the wrong questions. Okay, so what does it have to do with being a Navi?
So is he supposed to ask about the money?
He's first supposed to ask about food. What does the person need? Not supposed to ask the person who this woman is with you. And instead of he did the wrong thing, you don't ask
about the wife.
Right.
Don't we learn that from
let me see your
the angels visiting Abraham that they didn't really ask?
That's something else. Yeah,
Yes.
but what do we now? I'm just figuring out. It said, Eisha Sacher, you don't have to return someone else. Why does the wife of a prophet?
He had to return the wife, and then second, that he was a prophet.
So the verse mentions of a prophet hinted to Abimelech that he was to blame for causing Avram to lie about Sarah. In this way, God told Abimelech that his claim of innocence were worthless. Rather, he was liable for execution for the possible capital offense that could have resulted. Okay. Ki Otzar Hashem, because Hashem had blocked her womb, and then afterwards her womb was opened, Sarai, and she has a child. She has a child. Amar Rabbi Lazar says, "Shtei atziros halal olama." What does it say? Otzar Hashem. Achas. Is this by Sarai? Or is this by Abimelech? Well, it happened together, I think. After Abimelech was Hashem opened all their orifices were clogged. So then it opened up. So what does it mean? Opened up. Achas beish shikva zera. It opened up the what was closed by the man. That would be the seed. Shtayim beisha shikva zera v'leida. That would be the seed and the giving birth. Now, what that means. That's coming up. First, it starts before that. It starts with just shikva zera, just one, and the woman is shikva zera and giving birth. Now, that should be the same orifice, right? So she doesn't have a shikva zera. She has shikva zera. She has the seed that comes from the man. That's in her, but that wasn't able to be expelled. I guess from previously, because the man wasn't able to have to give the seed anyway. Okay, but masnisatan and the brisa taught shtayim bish that there's two for the man, shikva zera ktanim, the urine and the seed, shleisha bisha, and for a woman it was three, shikva zera ktanim v'leida. You hear my question? That the shikva zera and the leida should be the same.
Yeah, but that's what it says. It says here in Rashi. It says Tosfos Rid explains that semen in the woman's womb was restrained from fertilizing. So that's a
true. Dr. Stein is telling me from one of the notes from the Tosfos Rid that it meant that it wouldn't be expelled the way Rashi says, but that the seed wouldn't fertilize the egg.
Yeah, like what do you call it? What do you call it?
Right.
In other words, it didn't make a difference. It was in there. It
stopped.
It was no good.
That's what it meant by birth, because she can't give birth unless she gets pregnant.
Yeah, but so why is it two? So the two is for one from before. You see, what's happening here is there was a blockage on all of their every opening that they have. Oh, 1 second. Blocking everything out, so there's no seed that's coming from the man. So what do you mean that the seed is that the woman's is blocked, that the seed won't come out, or the seed won't go further? There's no seed from the man. It's talking about the seed that was already there from before, from relations that they had before. That's obviously what it means. And now it's saying, but it gets blocked, either in or out, depending on Rashi or Tosfos Rid. Ravina Amar Shleisha Be'ish, 3 for the man. Shechva zera k'tanim piyat tabas, he wasn't able to go to the bathroom to move his bowels. Arba Be'isha, and there's 4 for the woman. Shechva zera leida k'tanim piyat tabas, the same as we said before. Okay. Bad kol rechem, every womb. Amri debei Rabbi Yana afilu tanagelos shel beis Avimelech leitila beit sasa. Even the chickens in the house of Avimelech weren't able to lay their eggs because of the decree that was on them. Amalei Rava l'Rabba Bar Mari. Rava says to Rabba Bar Mari, okay, get ready. Rava and Rabba Bar Mari are going to have a conversation here that's going to last for another page and a half. Yeah.
In the notes here, it mentions that the urine and the seed, like it's the same tunnel. I guess it's the same one, so it counts as one. And then the other blockage was.
So why does it count it as 2? Oh, okay. That's what it's explaining. That he counted it as 1, another one counts it as 2. So, how do we know that if someone davens for his friend, but he needs the same thing, that he's answered first? Where is the source for that? Amalei, so Rabbi Bar Mari answers, Hashem returns the captive of Eve when he davens for his friend. I don't know exactly what was going on in Iyov over there. Amalei, he says, Atamar Mihasim, you say from there, I have another source that says, Vayispal Avram Elikim by Yirape, by Yirpa Elikim as Abimelech, Ves Ishte V'Amaisav. Avram davened for Abimelech. Hashem healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants. Uksiv, and then afterwards it says, Hashem Pakad Sarah, Hashem remembered Sarah, Kasher Amar Avram El Abimelech, as he had said, which means as Hashem had davened for Abimelech. That means that Sarah gets healed. I don't see the nen at Tchila, but anyway, Sarah gets healed because Avram davened for Abimelech. Oh, Pakad, Rashi explains, because Pakad was a past tense, that he already had healed. He already had remembered Sarah. Okay. Amali Rava Rabba Barmari. Rabba says to Rabba Barmari, what's the source for this that people say? Together with the thorn, the cabbage. Is it the cabbage or is it a cucumber? Cabbage, I think. The cabbage gets hurt, smitten. Amalei Diksiv, Lama Teriban Elai, Kolchem Peshatim Bi Num Hashem. Why are you contesting against me? All of you have sinned against me, and all of you, and includes the prophet as well, including Yirmiyah. Amalei, so Rava tells to Rabba Marmari that gave him a source that together with the thorn, in other words, when you uproot the thorn, sometimes you uproot the cabbage as well. So what's the source for that? So we say when the prophet also gets punished together with the people. Says, you say it from there. I have another source. How long are you, the plural you, not going to observe my commandments in my Torah? And that's Aaron and Moshe were included in that plural you. Amalei Rava Rabba Barmari. Rava says to Rabba Barmari, Ksivim K'tiach Lakav Chamisha Nashim. Yosef takes to Pari some of his brothers. Manu Chamisha, which are those brothers? Took 5 of the brothers. Which 5? Amalei Hachar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Marmari says Rabbi Yochanan taught us. All of those that Moshe Rabbeinu in B'zayis Bracha repeats their names. It says the name double, like whatever. Yeah, so all of those, so it's Dan, Zvulun, Garash, and Naphtali, that their names were said twice. Those were the ones that he took, probably because those were the weaker ones, and he didn't want him taken into that. That's one of the opinions that we had in, I think, the site. I forget where. Yehuda Nami Echbali Mechbal. 1 second, Yehuda's doubled as well. Why didn't he take Yehuda? He only took 5. Amalei Lamilse Yehuda Echbal. He was doubled for another reason, not because he was weaker. He was doubled because he caused something else to happen. What's the meaning of the pasuk? Yechi Reuven Val Yamis V'Masav Mispar. Reuben will live and not die, and his people will be counted. Yehuda, and this is for Yehuda. Yehuda's bones were rolling in the coffin. In other words, the spine wasn't intact, and so they brought Yosef's bones to Eretz Yisrael. They also brought the other. They also brought the other Shvatim as well. And so Yosef's bones were, Yehuda's bones were rolling in the coffin. So Moshe davened for them. Mama Lafanav, he says, Rabbeinu Shalom, Mi garam leRuven sheyoda, who caused Reuven to admit that he did the sin with moving his father's bed? That was Yehuda, because Yehuda said Tzadka mimeni, and he saw that that he could be open about the sin, and he said that Tamar was more righteous than him. So then Miyad Shema Hashem Kol Yehuda, then Hashem immediately heard the voice of Yehuda, and his bones went back. Ale Vari Lashafa, the bones went back into their sockets. The skeleton came back together. Leihavi Kamaski Lamasif to the Rakia, but they still weren't letting him into the heavenly yeshiva. Galami to Vienna, continuing the pasuk, into his nation he's brought him. Leihavi other by Kamri, he wasn't following. My Kamri Rabbanan. couldn't understand the shir. Mishkal Mitchell Badi Rabbanan wasn't able to take part in the conversation. Yodav Ravla, his hands are great. He wasn't coming up with the right halacha. It'll be a support against his enemies. It means the halacha would be like him as well. Rava says to Rabba Barmari something else. From where do we know Damri Inshi that what people say that the poor get poorer after poor goes poverty. Malay, that's an expression in English, right? Poor get poor. Yeah. We have a Mishnah. The rich people would bring bikurim with baskets of gold and silver, and the poor people would bring it with baskets of a rava klufa, of a woven fronds, a wicker basket. And the baskets they kept. The gold and silver vessels they returned, but the baskets they kept. That means the poor not only had to give the fruits of bikurim, but they also had to give their baskets, the containers. The rich people, their containers were returned. Amalei, yeah, I heard a pshat that because the poor people didn't really give all their fruits. They stuffed it up with what's it called? Those styrofoam pellets. Those what do they call those things? The egg
Macaroni.
and the egg thing.
Yeah, popcorn.
Popcorn with styrofoam popcorn, because they didn't have so many fruits, so they would stuff it up. So if you would empty the basket like they did with this, everyone would be embarrassed.
It's funny nowadays when you buy things that come in baskets, whether it's chocolates or other
They stuff it up.
things. Even the flowers, they put the stuff in the bottom and they put the flour. You don't get everything.
Right. We were always upset when we get a bag of potato chips and there was so much air in it. It's a few potatoes. But oh, it's because of the weight.
But then
so
by the way, with soap, I mean, they've done this to everything. Like the cereal boxes, they slowly decreased it, but they kept the same size. They just decreased the width. So when you saw it, I think that's what they end with soap. And we used to get bars of soap that were rectangular bars. Right now, it's the scalloped on the inside. So you think, it's to skim the soap off. They give you less soap when you buy it.
So the paper towels, they say now even wider, and what they did was they only widened the inner thing, but they didn't actually give you more.
But they say this number of sheets, but the sheets are like half the size.
Right. Yeah, and then then someone gave the toothpaste company advice. You know this?
No.
They said I can make you like double your money, but you have to pay me up front. And then anyway, his advice was to widen the opening, so people use it when they spread it out. They use more.
Coca-Cola has made billions because the small bottles used to be 20 ounces.
Yeah.
So then they decreased it to like 16 ounces, and they charge you more. And the bottle looks the same. It's just very thinner.
Unbelievable. Huh?
It's called a May West bottle because that's a waste.
Oh, I hear. Amalei, so he says, you say it's from near. The other pshat by the bikurim was, why do they take the basket from the poor? It's because the poor person put his effort into making the basket. The rich guy just bought the gold. He wasn't the one that did it himself. So that effort, the English wants. That's a good pshat. I have another source. Tami Yikra, that the Mitzaira, not only does he have to leave the place, but they announce that he's tummy. So not only does he have to suffer, but he also gets that embarrassment, which means that after the poor goes poverty. Get up early in the morning and eat. Have an early breakfast in the summer because of the heat, and in the winter because of the cold. They say a person can run. Inshi shitin ruhuti. Amri Inshi. People would say, Shitin Ruhuti Rod. 60 people can chase him, but they won't reach the guy that ate breakfast, that had his Wheaties. The Ksiv, La Yeravu, La Yitzmov, La Yakim Sherav Shemesh. You won't be hungry, you won't be thirsty, you won't be hit by the things that the sun causes, blight or whatever it is. Amalei Atamet Mehasim, you're bringing a pasuk from Yeshaya, and I have a source from here. I'm sorry. You'll serve Hashem your God, Zukri Shema, that's saying Shema. Utfila, saying Shema and davening. And Hashem will bless your bread and your water. Zupas b'melach b'kitin shamayim. This is bread with salt and a jug of water. Mikan ve'elach. Once you do that, then Hashem will remove the sickness from amongst you. V'tanyin, it was taught in a brisa. Machla zumara. The sickness is talking about the gall. Why is it called machla? Why is the gall called machla? Because there's 83 degrees that come from the gall. Machla, and machla actually has the gematria of 83. And all of them, all of those diseases go away by eating breakfast, bread and salt in the morning and together with water. Okay. Not bacon and eggs. Amalei Rava Rabba Barmari. Rava says to Rabba Barmari, "Minam Milsdam Rabba Nechavra Karya Chamra Ukvich Legabach Mush." If what's the source that the sages said that if your friend tells you, calls you a donkey, you should put the saddle on your back. Amalei Diksiv Yagar Bayomer Hagar Sarai Sifcha Sarai. Hagar, the servant of Sarai, says, "Emizeh bas." And the angel said, Hagar Shivcha Sarai, Emizeh bas, where are you coming from? Va'ana telechi. And where are you going? And she said, I'm running away from Sarai, my master, which means that she was called a maidservant. Now she acknowledges that, and she says that Sarai is the master. In other words, just go along with it, be humble. So Amalei Rava Rabbi Marmari Minam Milstam Damri Inshi. What's the source for what people say? Milsagna Dispach Kadam Amra. If you have anything negative about yourself, you should say it first before they people tell it to you. You should say it first. Amalei Diksiv Yemer Eved Avram Anoichi by Eliezer. He said, "I'm Avram's servant." He didn't make himself. He right away said, "What's degrading?" I would think servant of Avram would be a pride, but apparently the Gemara doesn't take. Amalei Rava Rabbi Barmari Minam Milsadamri Inshi. What's the source that what people say? Shafil ba'azil barabza ve'ini mitafin, that the eyes of the young goose are down, but she's looking very far ahead. I think the eyes are on the side. You can't tell. If it puts the head down, it still has the same gaze.
Everything from a goose.
That's the Bendy and the Golem joke. How do you get down from an elephant? You don't. You get it from a goose. Dr. Stein said everything on a goose is down. Anyway, okay.
A lot of people might like this. Though when it says about the water, the pitcher of water, it says the people that drink water are the ones that don't have wine.
Yeah,
wine is better.
Oh, the wine is better in the morning.
Yes.
Is there a difference between someone drinks a shot of whiskey in the morning or if he drinks it at night, health-wise? You never studied that. Oh, these old guys, the L'chayims they have in the morning and all the young Israel shows.
What do you mean young Israel shows? Come to the first million year.
Over here, it's the young guys. The young Israel shows, it's the old guys. They bring out a tray of the thing. Everyone's taking a shot.
This is just a young show. That's why he's.
That's why they're 100 years old.
So, Amalei, the source for this is the Ksiv. It's written What happened was David was needed food or something, and Naval didn't want to give him. He was gonna, I forget what happened, but anyway, Abigail, who was Naval's wife, protects her husband. He says, "Remember," and then she says, "But remember your maidservant, because she prophesied that her husband was going to die, and she would like to become David's wife. David desired her, and but she said later on, the time will come. So even though her eyes were down, even though right now she was protecting her husband, but she still had a vision towards the future." 60 types of mourning come to the teeth. The to the person that hears his friend eating, but he doesn't get to eat. This is talking about when Bathsheba was complaining to David that Adonio was becoming king, and he didn't was making himself king, and he didn't invite me, he didn't invite Tzadok, he didn't invite Beniyah or Shleima. Amalei, which means that it was a meal they weren't invited to. I have another source. It says, this is Rava saying, that Yitzchak takes Rivka to the tent of Sarah's mother, and she was a wife for him, and he was consoled. And afterwards it says, that Avram went and found himself a wife. That means that he heard someone else eating, and he desires it also. What's the source where people say that the wine is for it belongs to the owner, but the thank you goes to the butler? Yeah, it's saying that when Yitzchak got married, so Avram wanted to get married also. I don't have the word jealous yet. That's a translation. It's not in the bold. It's in the right. Amalei tiksiva samachtes yadcha alav l'man yishmun v'yirin kol das Yisrael. It says you will put your hands. It's talking about Moshe giving to Yeshua. He says you'll put your hands on him, and so that the Jewish people will listen and fear him. The Yishmu Elav, called Bnei Yisrael, because Moshe put his hands on him. That's why Yeshua ben Nun was full. So 1 second, it wasn't really from Moshe. Moshe just put his hands on him, but the real reason was because Hashem gave it to him. So, but Hashem gave it to him through Moshe. So we're attributing it to Moshe. That's like the thank you goes to the butler, even though the wine belongs to the owner. Amalei Rav Rab Marmari Mina Melsadam Yenshi Kalba Bekafne Galali Mivla. A dog in its hunger will even eat either, there's two interpretations, either stones or will eat its own manure. A full animal, a full soul will loathe even honey. Usually you say not, usually you say there's always room for dessert. But benefesh reva kolmar masak, when someone's hungry, everything that's bitter tastes sweet, right? That's what they say. How's the chalent or whatever? So it's delicious, the best shalom. You're just hungry.
By the way, the Marasha says with the stone, it's that if the dog's hungry, he'll eat something as hard as stone.
Oh, it's hard as stone. Amalei Rava, the Rabba Barmari, I thought it had to do with the way they take a bone and they the teeth, it sharpens the teeth and something. That the bad palm tree goes together with trees that don't give any fruit. Says that statement is everywhere. It's in the Torah, it's in the prophets, it's in the writings, it's in the Mishnah, it's even in the Brises. Kasab B'Torah. which means that basically the bad will hang out with their with other bad people. They'll find other bad people to hang out with. It says, Kasab Batayra, the Ksiv, Be'elach Esav al Yishmael. Esav goes to Yishmael to find the wife. Shani ben Aviyim says in the prophets, the Ksiv Yislach wal Yiftach Anashim Reikim, that the people, Yiftach was like expelled from his family, and people went to, the people surrounded him were empty people. It says in the prophets that every bird to its kind will, birds of a feather, flock together, and all people are similar. So, people find people that are similar to them. And what did they say? Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Anything that's attached, the Mishnah says, anything that's attached to something that's tummy is considered tummy. Anything that's attached to something that's tar is considered tar. Tanina bebraisa, and the Brisa says, Rabbi Eliezer Reimer, the zarzir, not for no reason did the zarzir, which is a not an impure bird, go together with the to the raven, which is another impure bird, rather because it's the same type of bird. Okay. Amalei Rava, the Rabba Bar Mari. Rabba says to Rabba Bar Mari another thing. Mino Hamil, so what's the source? Dami Inshi, Karyas Chavrach Layanach, if you call to your friend, he doesn't answer you, which is talking about you gave him rebuke and he doesn't listen. Rami Guda Rabba Shadibay. Dachi Guda Rabba Shadibay. That's another interpretation. You push over a wall at him, or maybe put up a big wall in front of him, basically cut him off from your friends. Amalei, you disliked him on Facebook. Is that something? You're not. Amalei Yan tiartich v'lei tiart mitumasech v'lei titriyai tiarticha v'lei tiart mitumasech v'lei titriyai. Because I purified you, but you didn't get pure from your impurity, I'm not going to help you anymore. Amalei Ravel Rabba Marmin Amosnami and Shibira Deshasmne Leitishbe Kala. A pit that you drank from, don't throw something into it. What is kala? Translate what it is. What shouldn't you throw into it?
Clod of earth.
Clod. Okay. Amalei quotes the pasuk. Don't despise the Edomite because he's your brother. Mitzri. Don't despise the Mitzri because you were a stranger in his land. So you drank from that well, you can't throw something into it. Amalei Rava, the Rabbi Bar Mari. Rabbi says to Rabbi Bar Mari, what's the source of what people say? Idolis dura dalin.
Why don't they bring Moshe not doing, hidden?
Yeah, I was expecting that to come. That's a good point.
I think that refers to not be grateful.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, but he was
best
saying
one
what
is
about
Moshe
wouldn't
didn't
hit
do
the
mark of Dam against the water. Because he was
that we would have had to explain. This was easier without explanation. They knew that we were behind in the daf, so they made it shorter. Idalis dura dalina. If you lift the load with me, then I'll lift it up. Dalina. If you don't lift it with me, I won't lift it up. This is Devira. Says to Barak, if you come, Barak says to Devira, Barak, if you will go with me, then I will go. And if you don't come with me, he tells to Devira, I won't go. Amalei Rabbi Legavri. The Kashishna Ledardaki, when I was young, I was with I was considered like an adult, and now that I'm old, I'm considered like a child. In other words, I had more respect when I was young. Originally it says originally Hashem went together with them in the cloud and with the fire at night. But afterwards it says afterwards he only sends an angel, which means the protection goes down a little bit. The honor goes down rather. Amalei Rava l'Rabba Bar Mari min Amils Dam Yinchi Basar Mari Nichsi Tzivi Mashach. After a wealthy person, Mari Nichsi, a master of possessions, wood is drawn, or maybe draw wood, which means basically just hang around with him. Amalei Diksiv Gamlei Tahela Chasavram Yatzenu Bakavayim, like the wealthful, like Rabbi, the light that went together with Avram. He also had sheep and cattle. Yeah, that's what people say. Anyone that puts judgment on his friend, he gets judged first. Sorry says, but to Avram, I'm angry at you because you took in the maid. I gave the maid, and now I'm getting mistreated. Sarah passed away first. Avram goes to eulogize. That's only if it has a judgment down in this world. Okay. What does that mean? Because if there's Taisva says that the Bezdin of shame was still around in those days. Amar Rab Yitzchak. It says,
And the opposite happened with Rachel.
Tell me again.
The opposite happened with Rachel.
With Rachel, she did not hold any grudge against Leah.
No. Yitzhak said about the whole idol thing. She ended up.
Yaakov said,
Yeah, so
yeah, but that would have to do with someone's words, not that's a statement. This is someone had like a judgment against someone else, like how could you do this? Then they get judged first. What was to the one that cries out, more the one that's being cried out about? Tanya Namiyachi was taught in a brisa. Let me see your commentary here. Woe to the one who cries out, more than the one who is subject to the outcry. Tanya Namiyachi, both the one that cries out and the subject of the outcry are implied in this verse. But if you shall cry out to me, I shall surely hear his outcry, my wrath shall blaze, and I shall kill you. This is talking about someone that an orphan, right? Oh, it's written in plural, that both the one who cried out and the one that caused the cry will be punished. Yeah. So Nitzak is the one that's causing the cry. Yeah. Okay. So, Amar Rab Yitzchak, where do we see this from? Did we quote this from? Yeah, we're quoting. We're associating this with Sarah. Oh no, 1 second. Amar Rab Yitzchak, the curse of a simple person should not be taken lightly. Avimelech cursed Sarah, and that was fulfilled. Here is the covering for your eyes. Amalah, he said to her, because you didn't tell me, you caused me this pain. You'll have a son that his eyes will be covered. And it was actually fulfilled. But Yitzchak became blind. That was her son. Person, it's better for him to be from the chased, but not to the chasers. There's no bird that's chased more than the dove and the pigeons. And those are the birds that are brought on the altar. Someone says, blind my eyes. So we said in the Mishnah that the person's going to have to pay no matter what. Why, when it came to the clothing, he didn't have to pay? And why, when it came to the body, he has to pay, even though he said on condition that you don't have to pay? Amalei he responded, probably Rav is responding, right? What's the Gimel? The Rabbah, maybe. And Amalei, so he responds, right? Either Rav or Rabbah. Rachel, if he the Michael al Rashi Evar. It says Resha because a person actually never forgives. He said that he's forgiving. He doesn't really forgive if someone cuts off one of his limbs. But would a person forgive for the pain? The Tanya was starting to write, Kani Pitzani Almanas Lifter Pater. It says, hit me, cause me pain, in order that I should be that you should be Pater. And it says that he is Pater. It's Ishtik. Rav is quiet. Amar Midish Mielach Ba, he says, do you know anything about this? Amar Lei. So now Ravasi Bar Chama says, Rav Sheshes says Mishum Pagam Mishpacha, because when someone is missing a limb, it affects also the family as well, and that he can't forgive. Itmar statement, Rabbi Shia says, because of the effect that it has on the family when one of the members is missing a limb. Rabam Mishum Sheina the Michael Rashi a person will never forgive on the if he's missing a limb, as opposed to if he just has pain that he could forgive. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Yesh Hein Shein Kalav Yesh Lav Shein Kahin. Sometimes a person says yes, and he really means no. He says no, and he really means yes. This sounds like modern topics.
Sounds like a Canadian. No?
Tani Nami Hachi. You have a brisa that says this. Hikani Pitzani Amanas Lifter Vamalei Hein. He says yes. He says Ari Yeshen Shen Kalab. He really meant no. Kares Ksusi Amanas Lifter Vamalei Lav says tear my clothes in order so that I should be that you should be exempt. Vamalei Lav. He says no. Ari Lav Shen Kain. He really meant yes. Let me take a look at how they're commenting on this. I was supposed to read it like this. He says, can I do so on condition that there will be no liability? Amalei Hain? He says yes. I have to read it like that. You have to sing it sarcastic. So that is, he really meant no. But if he says, tear my clothing, tear my garment on condition, can I do so on condition that there'll be no liability? Amalei, no. It meant yes.
We had this in the Gemara a few weeks ago with someone coming in the door, wanting to come in, and the person didn't want to come in. Similar.
Yeah,
said, yes, but he doesn't really mean.
Yeah, that was in the
like
Darim.
yes, wait.
That was in the Darim. What did yes mean? Does yes mean come
wait,
in? Right.
Wait.
Yeah.
Like I
he
hear
said
you,
yes.
But it didn't mean come in.
Right. Shibras Kadi Karas Tusi Chayiv. He says, break my jug, break my tear my clothing is Chayiv. Ramini, 1 second. It says Lishmar when it says someone said it says in the pasuk to guard. We're talking about the Shemrim. So it says V'leila Abed. He gave it to him to watch, but not to get it lost. Lishmar, it says in the pasuk to guard. V'leila Kraya is not supposed to tear it. Lishmar, supposed to watch it. V'leila Chalik Lani, I mean, he's not supposed to give it to the poor. Why is that a question? What do they say over there?
If the owner instructs the custodian to distribute the deposited items to the poor,
So he's going to be exempt, because
no
if he says that you're going to that you're able to distribute, so then he's going to be exempt. If he says that to tear it, he's going to be exempt. The Mishnah says that he's going to be chayiv. It depends. If he tore it after he gave it to him, then after he gave it to him, then he's going to be exempt. But while the original owner, is still holding it, then he's going to be chayiv. Amalei Rabba Lishmar das liyadi mashma. No, both of them are talking about when he gave it to his hand. He gave it into his hands. He's going to be. Maybe I said it the opposite. Let me use this for the. Our Mishnah speaks where the garment came into his hands, and he didn't give him permission to tear it. That's why he's going to be chayiv. We didn't give him, if it didn't come into his hands, which means that he received it for safekeeping after he was told to tear it. When was he told to tear it? Even before, in that case, he's going to be pater. Amalei Rabba, so Rabba says, Lishma das liyadi mashma. The phrase, if a man shall give, implies that the verse is speaking of a case where it already come to his hand before he was told that he could break it, and still he's going to be exempt. Elama Rabba, both of them are talking about that it came into his hand. But like Kasha, this he came to his hand to safekeep, and over there it's going to be chayav hadas led b'teres kriya. This was given to him for tearing. Who arnika that stuck das l'pumpadisa? There was a certain purse of charity that came to Pumpadisa. After they Rabbi Yosef Gabiu Gav, Rabbi Yosef gave it to a certain person that it should distribute it. Pashaba, this Shaimer, this guy, this Gabi Tzedakah was not careful. And also Ganvi Ganvu, a thief stole it. Chayver Rabbi Yosef said he's Chayev. Amalei Abaya says about Tanya, but we have a Brayso Lishma V'Elchal Klaniim that he says to guard it. He's not supposed to distribute it to the poor, which means that if he was told to distribute it to the poor, then he shouldn't be Chayev. Amalei. Rabbi Yosef says to Abaya, they have a fixed stipend every week. So the money was not, these monies were held for specific people. And that's considered to safeguard. Lachalik La'aniyim means that they didn't have a set amount that was coming to them. And then he was going to be potter. But over here he's going to be chayav because that was considered guarding it because they were supposed to get distributed to them every week a certain amount. Okay. Like this time wants to say something.